What could have left these black eggs? And what could possibly be inside them? Noah had encountered many mysteries in his life, but when he saw these black eggs, scattered seemingly at random on the ground in a corner of the farm, he muttered, "I've never seen anything like this before." They looked like neither chicken eggs nor the eggs of a predator. Their jet black, glossy shells shimmered faintly in the morning sunlight. From the very first moment, Noah knew these eggs were anything but ordinary, but being extraordinary was not always a good thing. Was it good this time? Were these real, or was it some kind of elaborate prank? Noah couldn't stop wondering. Lately, things had not been going well. This farm, inherited from his father, was a place Noah knew like the back of his hand, a home filled with memories of his childhood. But as the years passed, expenses piled up, and things became harder. Crops were no longer as profitable. The farm, once vibrant, now bore the marks of decline. Cracked fences and exhausted soil stood as a testament to better days long gone. For Noah, mornings usually started early. He would wake up before sunrise and rush into the daily grind of farm life. That morning was no different. After grabbing his coffee, he headed to check on the chickens. Everything appeared normal. Nothing seemed out of place. The hens were nesting, and a few eggs rested in the basket. But then his eyes caught something unusual in the grass a little beyond the chicken coop. The peculiar glimmer caught his attention, and he moved closer. "Whatever these are," he murmured, "they do not belong here." He was stunned, his eyes wide and his voice momentarily lost. The place where the eggs were found was a rarely visited, almost forgotten corner of the farm. The soil was damp, and wild weeds had taken over. Normally, no one would venture that far, but for some reason, Noah felt unusually compelled to explore that morning. Perhaps it was not a coincidence. Perhaps he was meant to find them. He bent down and picked up one of the eggs. Gently shaking it, he heard nothing. The eggs were oddly sturdy, with shells that felt tougher than any regular egg. They looked like they could withstand being dropped without cracking. Should these belong to some animal, maybe a snake? He wondered aloud. He raised his head, scanning the surroundings, but there were no signs of a snake or any other creature nearby. Whatever had left the eggs had already disappeared. Now he faced a dilemma. Should he leave the eggs where they were, or take them inside and try to figure out what they were? He felt a surge of fear and indecision, but he knew he had to make a choice. Noah's mind wrestled with itself. His logical side warned that these eggs could spell trouble. Maybe something terrifying would hatch from them, or perhaps they would lead to problems beyond his wildest imagination. But a small voice in his heart whispered something different. What if these eggs were an opportunity? What if they were a chance to save the farm? His heart raced as he pondered the possibilities, filled with emotions he had never felt before. It was as though this moment was unlike any other he had ever experienced. Resolute, Noah began gathering the eggs one by one, placing them carefully into an old wooden basket. "Sorry, whoever or whatever you are," he murmured, "but I cannot just leave these here." As he carried the eggs, he felt their cold, smooth surface under his fingers. The sensation was both thrilling and unsettling. These eggs were so strange. Holding them made Noah's heart pound, as if it might burst from his chest. Something about them was undeniably extraordinary. What if nothing comes out of them? This thought immediately crossed Noah's mind. The only way to understand what these eggs were was to wait. Thankfully, he had an incubator he had bought years ago, but rarely used. Carefully, he placed the eggs inside and adjusted the heat. He instinctively felt that this process required much more delicacy than hatching his chicken's eggs ever had. But did Noah have the courage to face whatever might emerge from these eggs? As much as he was afraid, his curiosity was stronger. He was desperate to know what they held. The following days were anything but ordinary for Noah. Every morning, he woke up early and rushed to the incubator first thing. Even during the night, he would check on the eggs to ensure they were still intact. The faint shimmer on their black shells seemed to suggest something was happening. Yet as the days went by, his patience began to waver. Day after day passed, and still there was no crack or sound. But this silence would not last forever. Something incredible was bound to happen soon. It was almost certain. During this waiting period, Noah's mind played out every possible scenario. What if they never hatch? He wondered. But then another thought intervened. What if, when they do hatch, my life changes completely? This hope was what got him out of bed every morning. But how could these eggs possibly change his life? When Noah finally saw the first crack, it was difficult to describe what he felt. One of the eggs in the incubator had trembled slightly in the warmth, and a faint crack appeared on its surface. Tiny, almost imperceptible. But to Noah, it was an answer after weeks of uncertainty. A mixture of joy and anxiety surged through him like waves. Beads of sweat trickled down his forehead. But things were not going to progress so quickly. As soon as the first crack appeared, Noah inspected the other eggs eagerly. Yet, none of them showed any signs of movement. Only this one egg, what did it mean? Would the others crack too? Or was this one egg somehow different? These questions coiled around Noah's mind like a snake. He even considered cracking the shells himself, but quickly realized that would not be right. The waiting was excruciating, so much so that he began neglecting other farm chores. His mind was completely consumed by the mystery of the eggs. As time went on, Noah found himself spending more and more time by the incubator. The other farm tasks, feeding the chickens, fixing fences, seemed far less important. Those around him were baffled by this newfound obsession. His neighbor and close friend, Jake, paid him a visit and, upon seeing the black eggs in the incubator, furrowed his brow in confusion. "What are these? No. Is this some kind of joke?" Noah responded with a faint smile. "Not a joke, Jake. But I do not know what they are either. Maybe a miracle, maybe a disaster. We are about to find out." But Jake remained silent for a moment, continuing to examine the eggs with a skeptical expression. "I just hope they do not get you into trouble," he said finally. The words echoed in Noah's mind. What if these eggs were a threat? What would he do then? How could he protect himself and his family from the consequences? After all, things were already going wrong for him. Still, Noah could not let go of the small glimmer of hope inside him. He believed. Every day as he checked the incubator, he let himself dream of the future. He imagined what could come out of these black eggs, how they might transform the farm, and perhaps even his entire life. But alongside these dreams, fear also lingered. What if whatever hatched from these eggs harmed the farm? If Noah had been in a better financial position, maybe he would not have clung so tightly to the hope these eggs represented. But life had not been kind to Noah in recent years. Financial struggles had become a constant burden, and in such a situation, these eggs felt like his only chance at salvation. Days turned into weeks, and Noah kept waiting. He had no other choice. The shine on the eggshells seemed to have dimmed slightly, but they still appeared intact. Balancing the farm work and the meticulous care of the incubator had become Noah's daily routine. Checking the temperature, adjusting the humidity, and gently turning the eggs, it had all become a ritual for him. One morning, Noah woke to an unusual sound, a faint, chirping noise, like a high-pitched squeak, coming from the direction of the chicken coop. "Is this real?" he thought to himself as he leapt out of bed and raced to the room where the incubator was kept. As he burst into the room, the sight before him froze him in his tracks. His eyes widened, his mouth hung open, and he stood there motionless. He did not even blink. One of the eggs had hatched, and what emerged was stranger than anything Noah could have imagined. A tiny chick, covered in jet black feathers, blinked its eyes wide, like a child waiting for Christmas morning, and curiously looked around. Its feathers were so black they seemed to absorb light. For a moment, Noah forgot to breathe. As he watched the chick's movements, Noah noticed something. It was no ordinary chick. Its feathers, eyes, and even its tiny beak were all black. This was nothing like any chicken breed he had ever seen. Noah carefully picked up the chick and felt his heart race. It was so elegant, so striking. What was it? I have to find out what this is, he thought. Without delay, Noah called Jake in and explained what had happened. At first, Jake thought it was a joke, but Noah's insistence convinced him to come over. Together, they examined the chick. After some online research, Jake finally found something. Noah, this might be a breed called ayam cemani from Indonesia. They are incredibly rare and unbelievably expensive. Noah was momentarily speechless. Just as he processed this information, another egg began to crack. The second chick was remarkably similar to the first. Noah now knew this was no coincidence. There was truly something extraordinary about these black eggs. However, this was as much a miracle as it was a responsibility. How would he care for these creatures? And how could he protect them? Another day passed, and eventually all the eggs hatched. The chicks that emerged were the most unusual and beautiful creatures the farm had ever seen. To Noah, each one was a tiny miracle. But miracles came with a price. These chicks were far more delicate than ordinary chickens and required special care. Noah built a special area for the chicks. He installed heaters to keep them warm and bought special feed to ensure their healthy growth. As the days went by, the chicks grew and became a symbol of hope for Noah's future. However, word about these rare creatures spread quickly. People began visiting the farm, curious to see the black chicks for themselves. Some even speculated that the black eggs were left by aliens. Surely that could not be true, or could it? One day a man arrived at the farm. "My name is Harris," he said. "Is it true what I have heard about these black chicks?" Noah invited Harris inside and showed him the chicks. After closely inspecting them, Harris spoke with great enthusiasm. "These are so rare that they could sell for prices you would not believe. They could not only save your farm, but make you wealthy." This offer was a turning point for Noah. Yet, he knew he had to be cautious. Working with Harris could be an opportunity, but would these chicks be reduced to mere commodities? As Noah pondered these questions, each day on the farm felt like a new adventure. And with each passing day, he grew more attached to the chicks. They were like his own children. He had raised other chicks before, but he had never felt this way about any of them. One morning, Noah sat in the coop, watching the black chicks. They were still small, but the unique shimmer of their feathers was mesmerizing. Each one looked as if it had come from a different world, a different story. "How can you be this perfect?" he murmured. It was as if the chicks were on the verge of responding. Days had passed since the first chick hatched, but their uniqueness captivated him anew every morning. The depth of black in their feathers, the way their surface reflected hints of green and purple when caught in the light. They were the strangest yet most beautiful creatures Noah had ever seen. The chicks represented a turning point in the farm's history. But this new chapter came with its own set of challenges. Could Noah prepare himself for the possibility of parting with them? He had always been a sentimental person, fearful of forming attachments since his childhood. As the chicks grew, their unique features became the talk of the town. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers from the nearby village began visiting Noah's farm to catch a glimpse of the new breed. Jake, who had been by Noah's side since the beginning, realized that the situation could quickly spiral out of control. On Jake's advice, visitors were allowed to observe the chicks only from a distance. They were not allowed to handle them for fear of causing harm. "No, you need to keep these chicks hidden from people," Jake warned one day. This much attention could bring trouble. Noah acknowledged that Jake might be right, but he also knew these chicks could be the farm's salvation. He was torn between keeping them in their natural environment and turning them into a business venture to resolve his financial struggles. Meanwhile, as the chicks grew, the workload on the farm intensified. Noah decided to build a larger and more secure area for them. With Jake's help, he constructed a coop with temperature controls to ensure their well-being. It was a significant investment for a farmer like Noah, but he knew these were no ordinary animals. Or maybe, he just hoped they were not. One morning, a sleek black car pulled up to Noah's farm. A man in a suit stepped out and knocked on Noah's door. "My name is Harris," he said. "I have heard so much about you. These black chickens of yours are truly remarkable." Noah wasn't sure how to respond. Initially, Noah regarded Harris with suspicion. He had never dealt with a situation like this before. But when Harris asked to see the chicks, Noah reluctantly led him to the coop. As Harris looked at the chicks, his eyes widened and for a moment he was speechless. These are incredible," he finally said. "Noah, do you have any idea how valuable these are?" Noah waited as Harris explained. Harris told him that these chickens were among the rarest in the world. They are not just rare, they hold enormous market value. Their eggs, meat, and even their mere appearance could fetch extraordinary prices, he said. This was a turning point for Noah. Harris proposed a significant investment to turn the chicks into a brand, expand the farm, and make Noah wealthy. But Noah was hesitant. The offer was tempting, yet the farm was more than a business to him. It was a legacy. It was a priceless inheritance from his family. After the meeting with Harris, Noah needed time to think. As always, Jake was there to support him. "Whatever you do, Noah, listen to your heart," Jake said one evening. Those words echoed in Noah's mind. One day, one of the chicks caught Noah's attention. This chicken was larger and shinier than the others. Its eyes, unlike the black eyes of its siblings, had a bluish tint. Noah immediately sensed that this was no ordinary difference. He felt this chick carried something even more unique. Noah contacted a genetic specialist to analyze the chick's DNA. The results were astounding. The chick possessed a rare genetic mutation. This mutation affected not only its physical appearance, but also its resilience and growth rate. The specialist informed Noah that this genetic trait had never been recorded before. "Noah," the specialist said, "this chick is not just rare, it is a miracle of nature. But remember, such a discovery comes with responsibility." This revelation both thrilled and scared Noah. He now understood that what he had was not just an opportunity, but a profound responsibility. Harris's proposal weighed on his mind again. Commercializing this venture might strip the chicks of their natural essence. Yet, he had few options to save the farm. One evening, Noah shared his decision with Jake. "I'm not going to accept Harris's offer," he said. "This farm is a family legacy, and I don't want to lose its spirit." Jake admired Noah's determination. "You made the right choice," he said, but Noah knew he wasn't alone. The community rallied around him. With Jake's help, they organized an event to showcase the chicks. People flocked to see the rare animals and supported Noah by purchasing his products. Suddenly, the goods Noah struggled to sell were in high demand, fetching better prices than ever before. Over time, Noah's farm became more than just a workplace. It became a symbol. In the town, it represented a story of hope and resilience. As the chicks grew, Noah continued to farm sustainably, ensuring the natural cycle was preserved. Collectors from around the world sought the black eggs, but Noah kept the trade small scale. He could have turned it into a massive enterprise, but he understood that not everything was about money. One morning, Noah sat in the coop watching his chicks. "You have changed my life," he said with a gentle smile. The chicks had not only provided financial relief, but also taught him to believe again and find purpose in life. As they looked back at him, Noah felt sure they were speaking to him in their own way. Every day, Noah visited the chicks, feeding them with care and tending to them lovingly. The farm had become more than a source of income. It was the living embodiment of Noah's story. A miracle born out of despair had transformed his life entirely. And this story was just the beginning of something far greater. This is not just my story, Noah said to himself. It's a story of hope for everyone. So, what about you? If such an opportunity came your way, would you make the same decision as Noah? Be honest. I would love to hear your thoughts. Stay hopeful and take care.